Hello, everybody. Me. Put my PayPal.me link in the pinned comments. I'm turning the monetization and the ads off for these while I go live, so it won't annoy those few of you who hear it live. But if you want to throw me a tip in the tip jar, there it is. Thanks for being here. We are reading H.P. Lovecraft again. I'm going to get right into it, even though nobody's here yet, or one person is here. Hello. Hold on just a second. What happened to my putter? Oh. Right. Hey, Melody. I'm going to finish reading this tonight. Hey, Cookie. This is, I think it's about an hour left. I think. But I'm going to get through it. I almost swore. I'm trying to keep these streams kind of clean. Like I was saying last night, like my impulse is to read entirely children's literature, just trippy children's literature. And I realized a couple of days ago, like I've got to stick to adult literature that fits that bill. Running out of Lovecraft. I think it's probably another week. If I keep up these streams every night and I read for 45 minutes a night, there's 2 more short novels. Each one's so it's about 2 weeks. 2 more short novels, and the Dunwich Horror is probably 2 nights. So it's like 10, 12 days worth of reading. And I have the Carver collection, but I got to finish reading it to pick stories. And yeah, I guess it's really annoying. They don't have a bookstore here. Like I want chance to determine what I read next. I mean, I could go back to Jan's and be more thorough. I have those collections of science fiction short stories, but again, I'm too depressed. I just want to read something I know. Yeah, Hess's fairy tales maybe, but yeah, I want to read something I already know well that I don't have to pre-read. So, maybe they do have Call of the Wild or White Fang, a copy of it at Jan's bookstore. It's amazing that the bookstore at the mall here are just closed and they're gone. And so there's not a bookstore here. Like, it's just amazing. All right. Right. There was the war with the ghouls and the ghasts and I was going to say gugs, but I don't think gugs were in this one. Yeah, Sean, like I said, I'm pretty sure there's a Viking portable Jack London, but that probably doesn't have the Star Rover in it. But anyway, yeah. Lovecraft, right. There was just this sort of war sequence, monster war, right. The ghouls made camp amongst the fallen stones of Sarcoman, dispatching a messenger for enough night gaunts to serve them as steeds. Pickman and the other chiefs were effusive in their gratitude for the aid Carter had lent them, and Carter now began to feel that his plans were indeed maturing well, and that he would be able to command the help of these fearsome allies not only in quitting this part of Dreamland, but in pursuing his ultimate quest for the gods atop unknown Kadath and the marvelous sunset city they so strangely withheld from his slumbers. Accordingly, he spoke of these things to the ghoulish leaders, telling what he knew of the cold waste wherein Kadath stands and of the monstrous Shantax and the mountains carven into double-headed images which guard it. He spoke of the fear of Shantax for night gaunts, and of how the vast hippocephalic birds fly screaming from the black burrows high up on the gaunt gray peaks that divide Ingannock from hateful Lang. Hippocephalic is the vocab word for this whole novel. He spoke, too, of the things he had learnt concerning night gaunts from the frescoes in the windowless monastery of the high priest not to be described, how even the great ones fear them, and how their ruler is not the crawling chaos Nyarlathotep at all, but hoary and immemorial Nodens, lord of the great abyss. All these things Carter glibbered to the assembled ghouls, and presently outlined that he speaks glibbery. Glibberies. All these things Carter glibbered to the assembled ghouls, and presently outlined that request which he had in mind. Yes, Zoe? You want to get in my lap, don't you? You want the mouse. You want to play fetch? What, did I trick you? Zoe's so slow. I don't think she needs to be an outdoor cat ever, really, frankly. Where was I? Right. All these things Carter glibbered to the assembled ghouls, and presently outlined that request which he had in mind, and which he did not think extravagant, considering the services he had so lately rendered the rubbery, dog-like lopers. He wished very much, he said, for the services of enough night gaunts to bear him safely through the air past the realm of Shantax and Carven Mountains, and up into the cold waste beyond the returning tracks of any other mortal. He desired to fly to the onyx castle atop unknown Kadath in the cold waste to plead with the great ones for the sunset city they denied him, and felt sure that the night gaunts could take him thither without trouble, high above the perils of the plain, and over the hideous double heads of those carven sentinel mountains that squat eternally in the gray dusk. For the horned and faceless creatures there could be no danger from aught of earth, since the great ones themselves dread them. And even were unexpected things to come from the other gods, who are prone to oversee the affairs of earth's milder gods, the night gaunts need not fear, for the outer hells are indifferent matters to such silent and slippery flyers as own not Nyarlathotep for their master, but bow only to potent and archaic Nodens. A flock of 10 or 15 night gaunts, Carter glibbered, would surely be enough to keep any combination of Shantax at a distance, though perhaps it might be well to have some ghouls in the party to manage the creatures, their ways being better known to their ghoulish allies than to men. The party could land him at some convenient point within whatever walls that fabulous onyx citadel might have, waiting in the shadows for his return or his signal, whilst he ventured inside the castle to give prayer to the gods of earth. If any ghouls chose to escort him into the throne room of the great ones, he would be thankful, for their presence would add weight and importance to his plea. All right. Yes, Kitty? He would not, however, insist upon this, but merely wished transportation to and from the castle atop unknown Kadath, the final journey being either to the marvelous sunset city itself, in case the gods proved favorable, or back to the earthward gate of deeper slumber in the enchanted wood, in case his prayers were fruitless. Hold on a second. All right. I totally have part of a gummy stuck in my tooth. And I had to stick my fingers in my mouth. I didn't want to do it on camera. All right, I'm good now. Thank you, the Waits experience. Excellent. Whilst Carter was speaking, all the ghouls listened with great attention. And as the moments advanced, the sky became black with clouds of those night gaunts for which messengers had been sent. The winged horrors settled in a semicircle around the ghoulish army, waiting respectfully as the dog-like chieftains considered the wish of the earthly traveler. The ghoul that was Pickman glibbered gravely with its fellows, and in the end Carter was offered far more than he had at most expected. As he had aided the ghouls in their conquest of the moon beasts, so would they aid him in his daring voyage to realms whence none had ever returned, lending him not merely a few of their allied night gaunts, but their entire army as they encamped, veteran fighting ghouls and newly assembled night gaunts alike, save only a small garrison for the captured Black Galley and such spoils as had come from the jagged rock in the sea. They would set out through the air whenever he might wish, and once arrived on Kadath, a suitable train of ghouls would attend him in state as he placed his petition before Earth's gods in their onyx castle. I don't think any of this sounds like a good idea, but all right. I mean, I've read this before. I don't remember how bad an idea this turns out to be. It seems like the kind of story has a happy ending, right? Moved by a gratitude and satisfaction beyond words, Carter made plans with the ghoulish leaders for his audacious voyage. The army would fly high, they decided. Of course. How high can you get? The army would fly high, they decided, over hideous Leng with its nameless monastery and wicked stone villages, stopping only at the vast gray peaks to confer with the Shantak frightening night gaunts whose burrows honeycombed their summits. They would then, according to what advice they might receive from those denizens, choose their final course, approaching unknown Kadath either through the desert of Carven Mountains north of Inganok or through the more northerly reaches of repulsive Leng itself. Dog-like and soulless as they are, the ghouls and night gaunts had no dread of what those untrodden deserts might reveal, nor did they feel any deterring awe at the thought of Kadath towering lone with its onyx castle of mystery. About midday, the ghouls and night gaunts prepared for flight, each ghoul selecting a suitable pair of horned steeds to bear him. Carter was placed well up toward the head of the column beside Pickman, and in front of the whole, a double line of riderless night gaunts was provided as a vanguard. This just sounds like it looks intimidating. Like, if these guys rolled up on my place, I would be like, I would not answer the door. Even if they were petitioning me with prayer, I would be like, no, thank you. The last guys who came by here left some Awake magazines. I'm good. At a brisk meep from Pickman, the whole shocking army. At a brisk meep. Okay, hold on. Let me reset. At a brisk meep from Pickman, the whole shocking army rose in a nightmare cloud above the broken columns and crumbling sphinxes of primordial Sarcomand, higher and higher, till even the great basalt cliff behind the town was cleared, and the cold, sterile tableland of Leng's outskirts laid open to sight. Still higher flew the black host, till even this tableland grew small beneath them, and as they worked northward over the windswept plateau of horror, Carter saw once again with a shudder the circle of crude monoliths and the squat windowless building which he knew held that frightful silken masked blasphemy from whose clutches he had so narrowly escaped. This time no descent was made as the army swept bat-like over the sterile landscape, passing the feeble fires of the unwholesome stone villages at a great altitude, and pausing not at all to mark the morbid twistings of the hooved, horned, almost humans that dance and pipe eternally therein. Once they saw a Shantak bird flying low over the plain, but when it saw them, it screamed noxiously and flapped off to the north in grotesque panic. At dusk, they reached the jagged gray peaks that formed the barrier of Inganok, and hovered about those strange caves near the summits which Carter recalled as so frightful to the Shantaks. At the insistent meeping of the ghoulish leaders, there issued forth from each lofty burrow a stream of horned black flyers with which the ghouls and night gaunts of the party conferred at length by means of ugly gestures. Just flipping each other off. I don't know what other ugly gestures are there. I'm sorry. I'm a little high. This is why I don't remember how this story ends, by the way. It's hard to approach the end of the story without being pretty high. I mean, for me. Your mileage may vary. Probably not by much, though. I doubt you're sober. God bless you if you are. Bless your heart. Bless your heart. Where was I? Right. Ugly gestures, yes. It soon became clear that the best course would be that over the cold waste north of Inganok, for Leng's northward reaches are full of unseen pitfalls that even the night gaunts dislike, abysmal influences centering in certain white hemispherical buildings on curious knolls, which common folklore associates unpleasantly with the other gods and their crawling chaos Nyarlathotep. Meeping. Yes, I like that the part that I just read is like this really careful description of like a swarm of 50 flying monsters with other monsters riding on them, and the signal to go is a meep. Meep. It's a heavy metal holocaust, and the signal is meep. Pikachu. Of Kadath, the flutterers of the peaks knew almost nothing, save that there must be some mighty marvel toward the north, over which the Shantaks and the Carven Mountains stand guard. They hinted at rumored abnormalities of proportion in those trackless leagues beyond, and recalled vague whispers of a realm where night broods eternally. But of definite data they had nothing to give. So Carter and his party thanked them kindly, and crossing the topmost granite pinnacles to the skies of Inganok, dropped below the level of the phosphorescent night clouds and beheld in the distance those terrible squatting gargoyles that were mountains till some Titan hand carved fright into their virgin rock. I had to fight back 3 different jokes about Virgin Rock. No, I'm not sharing any of them. There they squatted in a hellish half circle, their legs on the desert sand and their meters piercing the luminous clouds, sinister, wolf-like, and double-headed, with faces of fury and right hands raised, dully and malignly watching the rim of man's world and guarding with horror the reaches of a cold northern world that is not man's. From their hideous laps rose evil Shantaks of elephantine bulk, but these all fled with insane titters as the vanguard of night gaunts was sighted in the misty sky. Northward above those gargoyle mountains the army flew, and over leagues of dim desert where never a landmark rose. Less and less luminous grew the clouds, till at length Carter could see only blackness around him. But never did the winged steeds falter, bred as they were in earth's blackest crypts, and seeing not with any eyes, but with the whole dank surface of their slippery forms. On it is one big eyeball. That's why the face is flat. Who knew? I didn't know. With the whole dank surface of their slippery forms. On and on they flew, past winds of dubious scent and sounds of dubious import, ever in thickest darkness, and covering such prodigious spaces that Carter wondered whether or not they could still be within Earth's dreamland. Then suddenly the clouds thinned and the stars shone spectrally above. All below was still black, but those pallid beacons in the sky seemed alive with a meaning and directiveness they had never possessed elsewhere. Direction, that's direction. I'm just trying to help. You're on a roll. You know what? Don't let me interrupt again. I'm sorry. It was not that the figures of the constellations were different, but that the same familiar shapes now revealed a significance they had formerly failed to make plain. Everything focused toward the north. Every curve and asterism of the glittering sky became part of a vast design whose function was to hurry first the eye and then the whole observer to some secret and terrible goal of convergence beyond the frozen waste that stretched endlessly ahead. Asterism, Asterism. I've never heard that word. I've read this before, so I guess I have. I just burned right past it before. Every curve and asterism. Carter looked toward the east, where the great ridge of barrier peaks had towered all along the length of Inganok, and saw against the stars a jagged silhouette which told of its continued presence. It was more broken now, with yawning clefts and fantastically erratic pinnacles, and Carter studied closely the suggestive turns and inclinations of that grotesque outline, which seemed to share with the stars some subtle northward urge. They were flying past at a tremendous speed, so that the watcher had to strain hard to catch details, when all at once he beheld just above the line of the topmost peaks a dark and moving object against the stars, whose course exactly paralleled that of his own bizarre party. The ghouls had likewise glimpsed it, for he heard their low glibbering all about him, and for a moment he fancied the object was a gigantic shantak of a size vastly greater than that of the average specimen. Soon, however, he saw that this theory would not hold, for the shape of the thing above the mountains was not that of any hippocephalic bird. Is that 4 times now? See, if you had to pay rent on a word, the guys who run that word would have been like, thanks. They would have sent him a thank you note. They would have been like, thanks, man. Nobody's used that word 4 times in centuries. Asterism, a prominent pattern or group of stars. Where did he find that word? That's really good. That's even better than hippocephalic. Asterism, a prominent pattern or group. So it's just an archaic word for constellation? I guess actually it means groups of stars that are not constellations. It's like the Milky Way would be an asterism, maybe. Actually, that's too big, but yeah. That's cool. I'm trying to make it a band name. That's why I paused. Like I was trying to make the asterisms. Can you be called asterism? Would that be a good death metal band name? Asterisma. Is that, can you, all right. Right. Soon, however, he saw that this theory would not hold, for the shape of the thing above the mountains was not that of any hippocephalic bird. Its outline against the stars, necessarily vague as it was, resembled rather some huge metered head or pair of heads, infinitely magnified, and its rapid bobbing flight through the sky seemed most peculiarly a wingless one. Carter could not tell which side of the mountains it was on, but soon perceived that it had parts below the parts he had first seen, since it blotted out all the stars in places where the ridge was deeply cleft. What if my sister looks hippocephalic? Do I really look like a horse? At the beginning of the movie Ed Wood, about Ed Wood, there's a scene where they're all sitting around reading the bad review of Ed Wood's play that they're all in, and the girl is the long-faced girl from who's later in Sex and the City. I can't remember her name. She's really long nose. And like they're all looking at the newspaper and frowning. And the first one to say anything is her, and she looks up and says, "Do I really look like a horse?" And yes, she's hippocephalic. What is that actress's name? It's not Jennifer Love Hewitt, is it? No, that's the girl from Friends, right? She's not quite hippocephalic. She's more deer-like. Do I really look like a horse? Sarah Jessica Parker, that's right. It was before she was famous for that TV show. She plays Ed Wood's first wife or first girlfriend in Ed Wood. She was born to deliver that line. Do I really look like a horse? Honest to God, they cast her for that movie. Like they knew that her first line was going to be, "Do I really look like a horse?" And they looked at the casting call and like scanned 75 women and were like, "You, what's your name? Parker, Miss Parker. You got the job. Congratulations. Can you act?" Right. I'm sorry. get back to business. I'm sorry. This is very serious. Welcome back to part 11 of my ongoing series of dramatic readings of the works of Howard Phillips Lovecraft, a very respectable author. Let's be serious here, okay? Then came a wide gap in the range, where the hideous reaches of transmontane Lang were joined to the cold waste on this side by a low pass through which the stars shone wanly. Carter watched this gap with intense care, knowing that he might see outlined against the sky beyond it the lower parts of the vast thing that flew undulantly above the pinnacles. The object had now floated ahead a trifle, and every eye of the party was fixed on the rift where it would presently appear in full-length silhouette. Gradually, the huge thing above the peaks neared the gap, slightly slackening its speed as if conscious of having outdistanced the ghoulish army. For another minute, suspense was keen, and then the brief instant of full silhouette and revelation came, bringing to the lips of the ghouls an awed and half-choked meep of cosmic fear. Meep. Meep. I don't know why. I mean, meep could there's no reason meep can't mean like meep. But somehow it doesn't. Somehow it's a Pikachu kind of meep. Gotta be. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt the dramatic moment. We already know it's the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, so like there's no real suspense here. For another minute, suspense was keen, and then the brief instant of full silhouette and revelation came, bringing to the lips of the ghouls an awed and half-choked meep of cosmic fear, and to the soul of the traveler a chill that has never wholly left it. For the mammoth bobbing shape that overtopped the ridge was only a head, a metered double head, and below it in terrible vastness loped the frightful swollen body that bore it, the mountain-high monstrosity that walked in stealth and silence, the hyena-like distortion of a giant anthropoid shape that trotted blackly against the sky, its repulsive pair of cone-capped heads reaching halfway to the zenith. Carter did not lose consciousness or even scream aloud, for he was an old dreamer. But he looked behind him in horror and shuddered when he saw that there were other monstrous heads silhouetted above the level of the peaks, bobbing along stealthily after the first one. And straight in the rear were three of the mighty mountain shapes seen full against the southern stars, tiptoeing wolf-like and lumberingly, their tall meters nodding thousands of feet in the air. You know what? The guys who made Attack on Titan read this. This is a very Attack on Titan moment. The Carven Mountains then had not stayed squatting in that rigid semicircle north of Inganok with right hands uplifted. They had duties to perform and were not remiss. But it was horrible that they never spoke and never even made a sound in walking. Yeah, it hadn't occurred to me, but Lovecraft must be really popular in translation in Japanese. Totally the kind of writer that like Japanese English language nerds would read in English, but I bet he's been translated and has sold well in Japanese. Like he's hugely influential in Japanese culture, obviously. I don't think I'd noticed that before. I sure am slow for a smart guy. You know what? Maybe I should quit smoking marijuana. Okay, what was that? Meanwhile, the ghoul that was Pikmin had glibbered an order to the night gods, and the whole army soared higher up into the air. Up toward the stars the grotesque column shot, till nothing stood out any longer against the sky, neither the gray granite ridge that was still nor the carven and metered mountains that walked. All was blackness beneath as the fluttering legions surged northward amidst rushing winds and invisible laughter in the ether, and never a shantak or less mentionable entity rose from the haunted wastes to pursue them. The farther they went, the faster they flew, till soon their dizzying speed seemed to pass that of a rifle ball and approach that of a planet in its orbit. Carter wondered how, with such speed, the earth could still stretch beneath them, but knew that in the land of dream, dimensions have strange properties. That they were in a realm of eternal night, he felt certain. Yeah, I don't think it's been daytime. It's totally the Little Nemo thing. It's always night. They're dreaming. Like he's. If I was making a movie of this, he'd be in pajamas the whole time, just like Little Nemo. We did that in Attic Expeditions, actually, but it was a Little Nemo reference. And then, like in post, we made sure it was lit and photographed so that it implied that it's always like nighttime, like it's like lighting in here right now, like it's middle of the night lighting. And then they like changed it so parts of the movie look like daytime, like in post. Like somebody figured out what we were up to and was like, no, sometimes it's normal. What are you doing? That they were in a realm of eternal night, he felt certain, and he fancied that the constellations overhead had subtly emphasized their northward focus. Okay, wait, I'm going to back up. That's weird. Hold on. That they were in a realm of eternal night, he felt certain, and he fancied that the constellations overhead had subtly emphasized their northward focus, gathering themselves up, as it were, to cast the flying army into the void of the boreal pole, as the folds of a bag are gathered up to cast out the last bits of substance therein. And y'all are still going that way? All right. Then he noticed with terror that the wings of the night gaunts were not flapping anymore. The horned and faceless steeds had folded their membranous appendages and were resting quite passive in the chaos of wind that whirled and chuckled as it bore them on. A force knot of earth had seized on the army, and ghouls and night gaunts alike were powerless before a current which pulled madly and relentlessly into the north whence no mortal had ever returned. At length a lone pallid light was seen on the skyline ahead, thereafter rising steadily as they approached, and having beneath it a black mass that blotted out the stars. Carter saw that it must be some beacon on a mountain, for only a mountain could rise so vast as seen from so prodigious a height in the air. Higher and higher rose the light and the blackness beneath it, till half the northern sky was obscured by the rugged conical mass. Lofty as the army was, that pale and sinister beacon rose above it, towering monstrous over all peaks and concernments of earth, and tasting the atomless ether where the cryptical moon and the mad planets reel. No mountain known of man was that which loomed before them. The high clouds far below were but a fringe for its foothills. The gasping dizziness of topmost air was but a girdle for its loins. Scornful and spectral climbed that bridge betwixt earth and heaven, black in eternal night, and crowned with a prescient of unknown stars whose awful and significant outline grew every moment clearer. Ghouls meeped in wonder as they saw it, and Carter shivered in fear lest all the hurtling army be dashed to pieces on the unyielding onyx of that cyclopean cliff. Higher and higher rose the light till it mingled with the loftiest orbs of the zenith and winked down at the flyers with lurid mockery. All the north beneath it was blackness now, dread, stony blackness from infinite depths to infinite heights, with only that pale winking beacon perched unreachably at the top of all vision. Carter studied the light more closely and saw at last what lines its inky background made against the stars. There were towers on that Titan mountain top, horrible domed towers and noxious and incalculable tiers and clusters beyond any dreamable workmanship of man. Battlements and terraces of wonder and menace, all limbed tiny and black and distant against the starry prescient that glowed malevolently at the uppermost rim of sight. Capping that most measureless of mountains was a castle beyond all mortal thought, and in it glowed the demon light. Then Randolph Carter knew that his quest was done. and that he saw above him the goal of all forbidden steps and audacious visions, the fabulous, the incredible home of the great ones, atop unknown Kadath. Even as he realized this thing, Carter noticed a change in the course of the helplessly wind-sucked party. They were rising abruptly now, and it was plain that the focus of their flight was the onyx castle where the pale light shone. So close was the great black mountain that its sides sped by them dizzily as they shot upward, and in the darkness they could discern nothing upon it. Vaster and vaster loomed the tenebrous towers of the nighted castle above, and Carter could see that it was well nigh blasphemous in its immensity. Well might its stones have been quarried by nameless workmen in that horrible gulf rent out of the rock in the hill pass north of Inkanok, for such was its size that a man on its threshold stood even as an ant on the steps of Earth's loftiest fortress. The pashent of unknown stars above the myriad domed turrets glowed with a sallow, sickly flare, so that a kind of twilight hung about the murky walls of slippery onyx. The pallid beacon was now seen to be a single shining window high up in one of the loftiest towers, and as the helpless army neared the top of the mountain, Carter thought he detected unpleasant shadows flitting across the feebly luminous expanse. It was a strangely arched window of a design wholly alien to Earth. The solid rock now gave place to the giant foundations of the monstrous castle, and it seemed that the speed of the party was somewhat abated. Vast walls shot up, and there was a glimpse of a great gate through which the voyagers were swept. All was night in the Titan courtyard, and then came the deeper blackness of inmost things as a huge arched portal engulfed the column. Vortices of cold wind surged dankly through sightless labyrinths of onyx, and Carter could never tell what cyclopean stairs and corridors lay silent along the route of his endless aerial twisting. Always upward led the terrible plunge in darkness. Never a sound, touch, or glimpse broke the dense pall of mystery. Large as the army of ghouls and night gaunts was, it was lost in the prodigious voids of that more than earthly castle. And when at last there suddenly dawned around him the lurid light of that single tower room whose lofty window had served as a beacon, it took Carter long to discern the far walls and high distant ceiling, and to realize that he was indeed not again in the boundless air outside. I'm flipping ahead to see how much longer it is. Yeah, I didn't think it was ending right here. Yeah, there's a ways yet. Randolph Carter had hoped to come into the throne room of the Great Ones with poise and dignity, flanked and followed by impressive lines of ghouls in ceremonial order, and offering his prayer as a free and potent master among dreamers. He had known that the Great Ones themselves are not beyond a mortal's power to cope with, and had trusted to luck that the other gods and their crawling chaos Nyarlathotep would not happen to come to their aid at the crucial moment, as they had so often done before when men sought out Earth's gods in their home or on their mountains. And with his hideous expert and with his hideous escort, he had half hoped to defy even the other gods, if need were, knowing as he did that ghouls have no masters, and that night gaunts own not Nyarlathotep, but only archaic Nodens for their lord. But now he saw that supernal Kadath in its cold waste is indeed girt with dark wonders and nameless sentinels, and that the other gods are of a surety vigilant in guarding the mild, feeble gods of earth. Void as they are of lordship over ghouls and night gaunts, the mindless, shapeless blasphemies of outer space can yet control them when they must, so that it was not in a state as so that it was not in state as a free and potent master of dreamers that Randolph Carter came into the Great One's throne room with his ghouls. Swept and herded by nightmare tempests from the stars, and dogged by unseen horrors of the northern waste, all that army floated captive and helpless in the lurid light, dropping numbly to the onyx floor when by some voiceless order the winds of fright dissolved. Before no golden dais had Randolph Carter come, nor was there any august circle of crowned and haloed beings with narrow eyes, long-lobed ears, thin nose, and pointed chin, whose kinship to the carven face on Angrenek might stamp them as those to whom a dreamer might pray. Save for that one tower room, the onyx castle atop Kadath was dark, and the masters were not there. Carter had come to unknown Kadath in the cold waste, but he had not found the gods. Yet still the lurid light glowed in that one tower room, whose size was so little less than that of all outdoors, and whose distant walls and roof were so nearly lost to sight in thin curling mists. Earth's gods were not there, it was true, but of subtler and less visible presences there could be no lack. Where the mild gods are absent, the other gods are not unrepresented. And certainly, the onyx castle of castles was far from tenantless. In what outrageous form or forms terror would next reveal itself, Carter could by no means imagine. He felt that his visit had been expected, and wondered how close a watch had all along been kept upon him by the crawling chaos Nyarlathotep. It is Nyarlathotep, horror of infinite shapes and dread soul and messenger of the other gods, that the fungus moon beasts serve. And Carter thought of the black galley that had vanished when the tide of battle turned against the toad-like abnormalities on the jagged rock in the sea. Reflecting upon these things, he was staggering to his feet in the midst of his nightmare company when there rang without warning through that pale, litten, and limitless chamber the hideous blast of a demon trumpet. 3 times pealed that frightful brazen scream, and when the echoes of the third blast had died chucklingly away, Randolph Carter saw that he was alone. Whither, why, and how the ghouls and night-gaunts had been snatched from sight was not for him to divine. He knew only that he was suddenly alone, and that whatever unseen powers lurked mockingly around him were no powers of Earth's friendly dreamland. Presently from the chamber's uttermost reaches a new sound came. This, too, was a rhythmic trumpeting, but of a kind far removed from the 3 raucous blasts which had dissolved his grisly cohorts. In this low fanfare echoed all the wonder and melody of ethereal dream, exotic vistas of unimagined loveliness floating from each strange chord and subtly alien cadence. Odors of incense came to match the golden notes, and overhead a great light dawned, its colors changing in cycles unknown to Earth's spectrum, and following the song of the trumpet in weird symphonic harmonies. Torches flared in the distance, and the beat of drums throbbed nearer amidst waves of tense expectancy. Out of the thinning mists and the cloud of strange incense filed twin columns of giant black slaves with loincloths of iridescent silk. Upon their heads were strapped vast helmet-like torches of glittering metal, from which the fragrance of obscure balsams spread in fumous spirals. In their right hands were crystal wands whose tips were carven into leering chimeras, while their left hands grasped long, thin silver trumpets, which they blew in turn. Armlets and anklets of gold they had, and between each pair of anklets stretched a golden chain that held its wearer to a sober gait. That they were true black men of Earth's dreamland was at once apparent, but it seemed less likely that their rites and costumes were holy things of our Earth. 10 feet from Carter the columns stopped, and as they did so, each trumpet flew abruptly to its bearer's thick lips. Wild and ecstatic was the blast that followed, and wilder still the cry that chorused just after from dark throats somehow made shrill by strange artifice. Then down the wide lane betwixt the 2 columns a lone figure strode, a tall, slim figure with the young face of an antique pharaoh, gay with prismatic robes, and crowned with a golden pshent that glowed with inherent light. Gay with prismatic robes is... the rainbow wasn't associated with being queer when this was written. That's just a happy accident. He might have meant the gay reference. Close up to Carter strode that regal figure, whose proud carriage and swart features had in them the fascination of a dark god or fallen archangel, and around whose eyes there lurked the languid sparkle of capricious humor. It spoke, and in its mellow tones there rippled the mild music of Lethean streams. "Randolph Carter," said the voice, You have come to see the great ones whom it is unlawful for men to see. Watchers have spoken of this thing, and the other gods have grunted as they rolled and tumbled mindlessly to the sound of thin flutes in the black ultimate void where broods the demon sultan whose name no lips dare speak aloud. When Barzeh the Wise climbed Hathegkla to see the great ones dance and howl above the clouds in the moonlight, he never returned. The other gods were there, and they did what was expected. Zenig of Afarat sought to reach unknown Kadath in the cold waste, and his skull is now set in a ring on the little finger of one whom I need not name. But you, Randolph Carter, have braved all things of earth's dreamland and burned still with the flame of quest. You came not as one curious, but as one seeking his due, nor have you failed ever in reverence toward the mild gods of earth. Yet have these gods kept you from the marvelous sunset city of your dreams, and wholly through their own small covetousness, for verily they craved the weird loveliness of that which your fancy had fashioned, and vowed that henceforward no other spot should be their abode. They are gone from their castle on unknown Kadath to dwell in your marvelous city. All through its palaces of veined marble they revel by day, and when the sun sets, they go out in the perfumed gardens and watch the golden glory on temples and colonnades, arched bridges and silver basined fountains, and wide streets with blossom-laden urns and ivory statues and gleaming rows. And when night comes, they climb tall terraces in the dew and sit on carved benches of porphyry, scanning the stars, or lean over pale balustrades to gaze at the town's steep northward slopes, where one by one the little windows and old peaked gables shine softly out with the calm yellow light of homely candles. The gods love your marvelous city and walk no more in the ways of the gods. They have forgotten the high places of earth and the mountains that knew their youth. The earth has no longer any gods that are gods, and only the other ones from outer space hold sway on unremembered Kadath. Far away in a valley of your own childhood, Randolph Carter, play the heedless great ones. You have dreamed too well, O wise archdreamer, for you have drawn dreams' gods away from the world of all men's visions to that which is wholly yours, having builded out of your boyhood's small fancies a city more lovely than all the phantoms that have gone before. It is not well that earth's gods leave their thrones for the spider to spin on, and their realm for the others to sway in the dark manner of others. Fain would the powers from outside bring chaos and horror to you, Randolph Carter, who are the cause of their upsetting, but that they know it is by you alone that the gods may be sent back to their world. In that half-waking dreamland which is yours, no power of uttermost night may pursue, and only you can send the selfish great ones gently out of your marvelous sunset city, back through the northern twilight to their wonted place atop unknown Kadath in the cold waste. So, Randolph Carter, in the name of the other gods, I spare you and charge you to serve my will. I charge you to seek that sunset city which is yours, and to send thence the drowsy, truant gods for whom the dream world waits. Not hard to find is that rosy owl fever of the gods, that fanfare of supernal trumpets and clash of immortal cymbals, that mystery whose place and meaning have haunted you through the halls of waking and the gulfs of dreaming, and tormented you with hints of vanished memory and the pain of lost things awesome and momentous. Not hard to find is that symbol and relic of your days of wonder, for truly it is but the stable and eternal gem wherein all that wonder sparkles crystallized to light your evening path. Behold! It is not over unknown seas, but back over well-known years that your quest must go, back to the bright, strange things of infancy and the quick sun-drenched glimpses of magic that old scenes brought to wide young eyes. Oh my God, he's not done. I wouldn't have been doing this voice if I'd known how long this was going to be. All right. Oh my God, there's a lot more still. Really? Really? Okay. Okay, I really have to finish it. All right. All right. I didn't remember how spazzy this was. All right, I have to finish it. I'm gonna have to do the voice. I'm gonna have to maintain it. I'm thinking of Patrick McGee in Clockwork Orange, actually, as the author. Food all right? I'm glad you appreciate fine wine. Have another glass. So that's why I keep drifting British. For know you that your golden marble city of wonder is only the sum of what you have seen and loved in youth. It is the glory of Boston's hillside roofs and western windows aflame with sunset, of the flower-fragrant common, and the great dome on the hill, and the tangle of gables and chimneys in the violet valley, where the many-bridged Charles flows drowsily. These things you saw, Randolph Carter, when your nurse first wheeled you out in the springtime, and they will be the last things you will ever see with eyes of memory and of love. And there is antique Salem with its brooding years, and spectral Marblehead scaling its rocky precipices into past centuries, and the glory of Salem's towers and spires seen afar from Marblehead's pastures across the harbor against the setting sun. There is Providence, quaint and lordly on its 7 hills over the blue harbor, with terraces of green leading up to steeples and citadels of living antiquity, and Newport climbing wraith-like from its dreaming breakwater. Arkham is there, with its moss-grown gambrel roofs and the rocky rolling meadows behind it, and antediluvian Kingsport hoary with stacked chimneys and deserted quays and overhanging gables, and the marvel of high cliffs and the milky misted ocean with tolling buoys beyond. Cool vales in Concord, cobbled lanes in Portsmouth. You know, this voice, this guy. All right, I'm going to keep doing it, but he's being. I mean, do you really like New England that much? Strange monster god of dreamland? I mean, it sure is nice, dreamer of earth, in your mind, where the gods have fled. I like it too. It's very pretty in there in your memories. There is Providence, quaint and lordly. Oh, wait, no, I was down farther. Right. Cool vales in Concord, cobbled lanes in Portsmouth, twilight bends of rustic New Hampshire roads where giant elms half hide white farmhouse walls and creaking well sweeps. All right, I'm going to tone it down a little. Gloucester's salt wharves and Truro's windy willows. I'm actually from Massachusetts, arguably, and I don't know where Truro is. Truro? Vistas of distant steepled towns and hills beyond hills along the north shore. Hushed stony slopes and low ivied cottages in the lee of huge boulders in Rhode Island's back country. Scent of the sea and fragrance of the fields. Spell of the dark woods and joy of the orchards and gardens at dawn. These, Randolph Carter, are your city, for they are yourself. New England bore you, and into your soul she poured a liquid loveliness which cannot die. This loveliness, molded, crystallized, and polished by years of memory and dreaming, is your terraced wonder of elusive sunsets. And to find that marble parapet with curious urns and carven rail, and descend at last those endless balustraded steps to the city of broad squares and prismatic fountains, you need only to turn back to the thoughts and visions of your wistful boyhood. Look. Through that window shine the stars of eternal night. Even now they are shining above the scenes you have known and cherished, drinking of their charm that they may shine more lovely over the gardens of dream. There is Antares. He is winking at this moment over the roofs of Tremont Street, and you could see him from your window on Beacon Hill. Out beyond those stars yawn the gulfs from whence my mindless masters have sent me. Some day you too may traverse them, but if you are wise, you will beware such folly. For of those mortals who have been and returned, only one preserves a mind unshattered by the pounding, clawing horrors of the void. Terrors and blasphemies gnaw at one another for space, and there is more evil in the lesser ones than in the greater. even as you know from the deeds of those who sought to deliver you into my hands, whilst I myself harbored no wish to shatter you, and would indeed have helped you hither long ago had I not been elsewhere busy, and certain that you would find yourself the way. Shun, then, the outer hells, and stick to the calm, lovely things of your youth. Don't try drugs, kid. Seek out your marvelous city and drive thence the recreant great ones, sending them back gently to those scenes which are of their own youth, and which wait uneasy for their return. Easier even than the way of dim memory is the way I will prepare for you. See, there comes hither a monstrous shantak, led by a slave who for your peace of mind had best keep invisible. Mount and be ready, there. Yogash, the black, will help you on the scaly horror. Steer for that brightest star just south of the zenith. It is Vega, and in 2 hours will be just above the terrace of your sunset city. Steer for it only till you hear a far-off singing in the high ether. Higher than that lurks madness. So rein your shantak when the first note lures. Look then back to earth, and you will see shining the deathless altar flame of Ired Na from the sacred roof of a temple. Okay, that would have been too many instructions for me. Right there, I would have been like, okay, you got to back up. Hold on. I'm supposed to what? That temple is in your desiderate sunset city, so steer for it before you heed the singing and are lost. When you draw nigh the city, steer for the same high parapet whence of old you scanned the outspread glory, prodding the shantak till he cry aloud. That cry the great ones will hear and know as they sit on their perfumed terraces, and there will come upon them such a homesickness that all of your city's wonders will not console them for the absence of Kadath's grim castle and the pshent of eternal stars that crowns it. Then must you land amongst them with the shantak. It's way too many instructions. It's just not, it's not plausible. He's asleep too. He's dreaming this. Dude. Then must you land amongst them with the shantak, and let them see and touch that noisome and hippocephalic bird. Okay, is that 5 times? He knows. He knows he's making me laugh. Don't do it. You don't gotta tell us. We already know it's hippocephalic. We already. If there's one thing I know, in fact, it's the only thing I know about shantak birds is that they are hippocephalic. Their eggs are valuable, and they're big. Truro is a town on Cape Cod. I've only ever been out Cape Cod really once or twice. In Massachusetts, like I went to high school in Worcester, in Shrewsbury, and I went to college in Boston. And Cape Cod is just geographically tricksy. Like you don't just wash up there accidentally. Like you got to go out there. You go wandering out on road trips like all the time. But dude, like Cape Cod, it's windy and weird. At least that's the way I remember it back in the 80s. He mentioned a bunch of places in that run of like that neighborhood in Boston he's describing is where I went to college. This is where Emerson College is. I went to college at Emerson, lived in a dorm at the foot of Beacon Hill, same building Jack Ketchum, the novelist, lived in when he went to Emerson. He was class of 69. I was class of 89. Yeah. He lived downstairs. He lived 6 floors down from me. Though I have at least once just spontaneously lied and said he lived in the same room as me, just to mythologize a little bit. It's not true. Then must you land amongst them with the shantak, and let them see and touch that noisome and hippocephalic bird. Oh, I should do the voice. Hold on. How much was left of this? Just do the weird voice I was doing. Yeah. Then must you land amongst them with the shantak, and let them see and touch that noisome and hippocephalic bird. Meanwhile, discoursing to them of unknown Kadath, which you will so lately have left, and telling them how its boundless halls are lonely and unlighted, where of old they used to leap and revel in supernal radiance. And the Shantak will talk to them in the manner of Shantaks, but it will have no powers of persuasion beyond the recalling of elder days. Over and over must you speak to the wandering great ones of their home and youth, till at last they will weep and ask to be shown the returning path they have forgotten. Thereat can you loose the waiting Shantak. Sending him skyward with the homing cry of his kind, hearing which the great ones will prance and jump with antique mirth, and forthwith stride after the loathly bird in the fashion of gods, through the deep gulfs of heaven to Kadath's familiar towers and domes. Not loathsome, loathly, Loathly, which he totally made up. Is that a Shantak? I don't. In my mind, Shantaks look like flying dodos, but I guess dodos are almost like I hear hippocephalic and I should be picturing a hippopotamus or a horse, but I'm thinking a dodo bird, like the big goofy beak, like that. You see a picture of a dodo and you think like, yeah, they look like they would go extinct. I guess also Shantaks seem like they seem like maybe Dr. Seuss drew them. But I guess that's true of all these monsters. It feels like if like Dr. Seuss had a bad trip and was like suffering from it, the bad trip, and you were like, "Can you draw me a night gaunt and a gug?" There's some specific cartoon bird I'm thinking of that the Shantaks are reminding me of, but I'm not placing it. It's got sort of a dodo-y face, and it's sort of creepy and ugly, and it's in a Disney movie or a Don Bluth movie or something. It's like a vulture in the Black Cauldron or something like that. Yeah, HP knew about dodos, yeah. Then will the marvelous sunset city be yours to cherish and inhabit forever, and once more will Earth's gods rule the dreams of men from their accustomed seat. Go now. The casement is open and the stars await outside. Already your Shantak wheezes and titters with impatience. Steer for Vega through the night, but turn when the singing sounds. Forget not this warning, lest horrors unthinkable suck you into the gulf of shrieking and ululent madness. Remember the other gods. They are great and mindless and terrible, and lurk in the outer voids. They are good gods to shun. Hi, Aishata Nagya, you are off. Send back Earth's gods to their haunts on unknown Kadath, and pray to all space that you may never meet me in my 1,000 other forms. Farewell, Randolph Carter, and beware, for I am Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. I need an organ. Brrr. I shouldn't fuck it up by laughing, but it's just awesome. I want to cheer it on. Woo! And Randolph Carter. Oh, wait, I don't need to do the voice anymore. I'm done with Nyarlathotep's 10-page speech. Nyarlathotep went full Ayn Rand. Pyewacket, you know better than to attack my papers. Yeah, just lie down, buddy. Pye thinks I've been streaming too long. Pye knows I should eat. You can't see her without me moving around the thing, but she's sitting on top of my desk stuff looking slightly alarmed, like, hey, you know you're going long, right? She's looking at me like, hey, buddy. You Google image Shantak birds. Yeah, the thing about Lovecraft is all the monsters he makes up, he describes really carefully. It's like it's bait for artists. Like, it's hard not to want to illustrate this stuff. Like He generally says something is undescribable, and then he describes it really carefully. Actually, some of the monsters in this story are the least described monsters. In Mountains of Madness, he describes all the monsters really carefully. There's a lot of monster on monster action in that story too. I don't know what his thing is for like he Alien versus Predator is very Lovecraftian. Two monsters fighting it out in an underground pyramid. He would have been there on opening night. He would have been like, sign me up. And Randolph Carter, gasping and dizzy on his hideous shantak, shot screamingly into space toward the cold blue glare of Boreal Vega, looking but once behind him at the clustered and chaotic turrets of the onyx nightmare wherein still glowed the lone lurid light of that window above the air and the clouds of Earth's dreamland. Great polypus horrors slid darkly past, and unseen bat wings beat multitudinous around him, but still he clung to the unwholesome mane of that loathly and hippocephalic scaled bird. The stars danced mockingly, almost shifting now and then to form pale signs of doom that one might wonder one had not seen and feared before. And ever the winds of ether howled of vague blackness and loneliness beyond the cosmos. Then through the glittering vault ahead there fell a hush of portent, and all the winds and horrors slunk away as night things slink away before the dawn. Trembling in waves that golden wisps of nebula made weirdly visible, there rose a timid hint of far-off melody, droning in faint chords that our own universe of stars knows not. And as that music grew, the shantak raised its ears and plunged ahead, and Carter likewise bent to catch each lovely strain. It was a song, but not the song of any voice. Night and the spheres sang it, and it was old when space and Nyarlathotep and the other gods were born. Okay, wait, this is ringing a bell. He was supposed to do something. He was supposed to do something. See? See, it was too many instructions. Faster flew the shantak, and lower bent the rider, drunk with the marvels of strange gulfs and whirling in the crystal coils of outer magic. Crystal, huh? Then came too late the warning of the evil one, the sardonic caution of the demon legate who had bidden the seeker beware the madness of that song. Only to taunt had Nyarlathotep marked out the way to safety in the marvelous sunset city. Only to mock had that black messenger revealed the secret of those truant gods whose steps he could so easily lead back at will. For madness and the void's wild vengeance are Nyarlathotep's only gifts to the presumptuous, and frantic though the rider strove to turn his disgusting steed, that leering, tittering shantak coursed on impetuous and relentless, flapping its great slippery wings in malignant joy, and headed for those unhallowed pits whither no dreams reach, that last amorphous blight of nethermost confusion where bubbles and blasphemes at infinity's center the mindless demon Sultan Azathoth, whose name no lips dare speak aloud. Oh, whoops. Pie whack-it. What are you doing? What was that ruckus? Oh, you're in the drawers now. Yeah. I should point the camera at her, but we're almost done here. She's trying to tell me to stop. It's probably about 10 more minutes. It's probably 10 more minutes, probably. You gonna be all right? Unswerving and obedient to the foul legate's orders, that hellish bird plunged onward through shoals of shapeless lurkers and caperers in darkness, and vacuous herds of drifting entities that pawed and groped and pawed, the nameless larvae of the outer gods that are like them blind and without mind, and possessed of singular hungers and thirsts. Onward, unswerving and relentless, and tittering hilariously to watch the chuckling and hysterics into which the siren song of night in the spheres had turned, that eldritch scaly monster bore its helpless rider, hurtling and shooting, cleaving the uttermost rim and spanning the outermost abysses, leaving behind the stars and the realms of matter, and darting meteor-like through stark formlessness toward those inconceivable, unlighted chambers beyond time, wherein black Azathoth gnaws, shapeless and ravenous amidst the muffled, maddening beat of vile drums and the thin, monotonous whine of accursed flutes. Onward, onward, through the screaming, cackling, and blackly populous gulfs. And then from some dim blessed distance there came an image and a thought to Randolph Carter the doomed. Too well had Nyarlathotep planned his mocking and his tantalizing, for he had brought up that which no gusts of icy terror could quite efface. Home, New England, Beacon Hill, the waking world. For know you that your gold and marble city of wonder is only the sum of what you have seen and loved in youth, the glory of Boston's hillside roofs and western windows aflame with sunset, of the flower-fragrant common and the great dome on the hill, and the tangle of gables and chimneys in the violet valley where the many-bridged Charles flows drowsily. This loveliness, molded, crystallized, and polished by years of memory and dreaming, is your terraced wonder of elusive sunsets. And to find that marble parapet with curious urns and carven rail, and descend at last those endless balustraded steps to the city of broad squares and prismatic fountains, you need only to turn back to the thoughts and visions of your wistful boyhood. Onward, onward, dizzily onward to ultimate doom through the blackness where sightless feelers pawed and slimy snouts jostled and nameless things tittered and tittered and tittered. But the image and the thought had come, and Randolph Carter knew clearly that he was dreaming and only dreaming, and that somewhere in the background the world of waking in the city of his infancy still lay. Words came again. You need only turn back to the thoughts and visions of your wistful boyhood. Turn, turn, blackness on every side, but Randolph Carter could turn. It seems like this is a reference to the ruby slippers at the end of The Wizard of Oz, too, but that movie hadn't been made yet. She uses the slippers to get back to Kansas in the book. But it isn't like waking up from a dream. Thick through the rushing nightmare that clutched his senses, Randolph Carter could turn and move. He could move, and if he chose, he could leap off the evil shantak that bore him hurtlingly doomward at the orders of Nyarlathotep. He could leap off and dare those depths of night that yawned interminably down, those depths of fear whose terrors yet could not exceed the nameless doom that lurked waiting at chaos's core. He could turn and move and leap. He could. He would. Off that vast hippocephalic abomination leaped the doomed and desperate dreamer, and down through endless voids of sentient blackness he fell. Eons reeled, universes died and were born again, stars became nebulae, and nebulae became stars, and still Randolph Carter fell through those endless voids of sentient blackness. Then, in the slow creeping course of eternity, the utmost cycle of the cosmos churned itself into another futile completion, and all things became again as they were unreckoned kalpas before. I don't know what a kalpa is. I'm getting my water. My mouth made a funny noise because it's dry. I was excited I didn't want to have to get up and get the water. Shantak's bunch of the Skeksis. I can't do that noise quite right. Yeah, actually, Dark Crystal, it's too bad that Jim Henson can't make a movie of this. Brian Henson could do it. The people who designed the Dark Crystal are still, like, Stroud is still working, right? It's the same designer on the new Dark Crystal stuff, right? I think. I mean, it might not be the same lead. He might not be doing it. He would be the right designer for this. Then, in the slow creeping course of eternity, the utmost cycle of the cosmos churned itself into another futile completion, and all things became again as they were unreckoned kalpas before. Matter and light were born anew as space once had known them, and comets, suns, and worlds sprang flaming into life, though nothing survived to tell that they had been and gone, always and always, back to no first beginning. And there was a firmament again, and a wind, and a glare of purple light in the eyes of the falling dreamer. There were gods and presences and wills, beauty and evil, and the shrieking of noxious night robbed of its prey. For through the unknown ultimate cycle had lived a thought and a vision of a dreamer's boyhood. And now there were remade a waking world and an old cherished city to body and to justify these things. Out of the void, Singak the violet gas had pointed the way, and archaic Nodens was bellowing his guidance from unhinted deeps. Stars swelled to dawns, and dawns burst into fountains of gold, carmine, and purple, and still the dreamer fell. Cries rent the ether as ribbons of light beat back the fiends from outside. And hoary Nodens raised a howl of triumph when Jarl Thotep, close on his quarry, stopped baffled by a glare that seared his formless hunting horrors to gray dust. Randolph Carter had indeed descended at last the wide marmoreal flights to his marvelous city, for he was come again to the fair New England world that had wrought him. So to the organ chords of morning's myriad whistles, and dawn's blaze thrown dazzling through purple panes by the great gold dome of the State House on the hill, Randolph Carter leaped shoutingly awake within his Boston room. Birds sang in hidden gardens, and the perfume of trellised vines came wistful from arbors his grandfather had reared. Beauty and light glowed from classic mantel and carven cornice and walls grotesquely figured, while a sleek black cat rose yawning from hearthside sleep that his master's start and shriek had disturbed. And vast infinities away, past the gate of deeper slumber, and the enchanted wood, and the garden lands, and the Serenarian sea, and the twilight reaches of Inganok, the crawling chaos Nyarlathotep strode brooding into the onyx castle atop unknown Kadath in the cold waste, and taunted insolently the mild gods of earth, whom he had snatched abruptly from their scented revels in the marvelous sunset city. The end. All right, Pie Wagon, are you ready to hang out? Oh my God, that noise was my roommates knocking around. Yeah, the case of Charles Dexter Ward is next. So he I don't think he even tried to publish the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. If I'm remembering right, when he died from, I don't think it's cancer, but it was some kind of gut rot. Maybe it was cancer, but it got him pretty quick. Like he was struggling with gut pains for a while and not telling anyone, and it wasn't like the way you always read the footnote version is if he had gotten to a doctor quicker, maybe, but he didn't. But I don't know what the illness was. But he was trying to cross over from writing short stories to writing novels because the novel market was basically for grown-ups, and short stories was magazines, was pulps, was low literature, and paychecks were bigger, especially for hardcovers. But there's a reason for that. It's a bigger piece of work, and he had trouble figuring out how to put a novel together. Like he didn't. Cancer of the small intestine, is that what it was? He didn't really develop characters or care about people in the direct way that modern fiction was pretty obsessed with, insisting its best practitioners ascribe to and always aspire to. Like, and this is across all the pulp literature. This is like this. Tolkien is a really good example of it too. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings. It isn't about the development and the interaction of characters who are psychologically realistic and believable. That just isn't where it's at all. And Lovecraft wrote 3 novels. Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath is the first of the 3 in this collection. So I guess it's the first of the 3 he actually, in the order he wrote. I think that's how this collection is arranged. And then the next one is The Case of Charles Dexter Ward. The Case of Charles Dexter Ward is very much traditional Gothic fiction. It's a long horror story about a guy um, who becomes obsessed with black magic because of an ancestor who is satanic. I think it's set in Salem. Uh, it's it's fun, but it's pretty straightforward. But that also has this framework that's. I mean, it seems really straightforward now. It's like an analog horror kind of framework. It's about like it's couched as research. It's distanced, like you're reading a newspaper archive. Uh, that was really odd when Lovecraft did it. Uh, and like I said, I don't think he tried to even publish any of the three novels. I think Mountains of Madness was published while he was alive because he needed money, but he didn't think it was very good either. Uh, and it wasn't by the standards of like the mainstream fiction of its time. Like really carefully developed, psychologically believable characters, uh, and really advanced um, language in ways that does not necessarily uh, endear itself to being read out loud. Hemingway and Faulkner and the great modernists, Steinbeck. Like this is he's writing in the 20s. So that's the kind of thing that's going on in mainstream fiction. And in the pulp fiction, the best stuff, well, Lovecraft is among the best stuff going on. And fantasy and horror and science fiction being written for adults directly for the book market was a weird niche specialty that mostly British writers were engaging in at this point. Um, did Lovecraft become more popular after his death? Yeah, he was. You'll read that he was totally obscure, uh, and that Weird Tales was an obscure magazine. It's a little lowballing it. Like Weird Tales was a prominent pulp magazine, and he was the second most famous prominent writer there after Robert Howard, probably, who was the inventor of Conan. Um, and yeah, there's but he wasn't really popular until in the 50s. August Derleth, who was one of the youngest writers who actually published in Weird Tales while Lovecraft was alive. He was a fan of Lovecraft's, corresponded with him heavily when he was in his late teens, snail mail. And he started the Arkham House Press to reprint Lovecraft and Howard and other pulp writers, mostly Weird Tales writers. Arkham House is still around and they make gorgeous books. Their books are just fabulous looking. They're really like Arkham House books are like they're off size, they're a little bit undersized, they're like about this big, and they're super cool. And they have really good taste in classic fantasy and horror fiction. Um, I actually thought about I don't know when the last time Arkham House reprinted Robert Howard was, but I thing about this is like if I buy a nice book for stream to read on stream, I mean you see what's happening to this Lovecraft book. I'm just demolishing it. Like I can't have nice things. Like I feel like the next book I read for stream, I should make a point of getting a nice copy. And then once I've read it to pieces for stream, I should give it to whoever liked it most, basically. Like this one actually is nobody's getting this because that right there, that mark is where Pyewacket marked it with a drop of urine, and I scrubbed Pyewacket's urine off of it. Also, it says here, hello, future reader. I was the first owner, 2021, Janice Fuentes. Janacie Fuentes. If anyone wants to go look her up on Facebook and tell her I'm reading her copy of this out loud. But yeah, Lovecraft. So he was published in these sort of small press hardbacks in the mid 50s. Uh, got a slowly snowballing reputation over the 60s. Um, I think Lovecraft, they started reprinting him in paperbacks in the mid 60s. Almost all of the great fantasy and horror literature of the early 20th century was not popular until um, like mid 60s and American paperback audience. Uh, Tolkien also. Um, Tolkien's Lord of the Rings novels and The Hobbit were kind of minor cult classics in England. They sold okay when they came out, but they were out of print and they'd been forgotten. Ballantine brought Tolkien back into print in paperback in the States in, I think, 66, and it blew up. That's the Conan paperbacks from, I can't remember who the Conan paperbacks from the mid 60s have these gorgeous Frazetta covers. They're really cool. And they have some. Sprague de Camp and Lynn Carter did some weird editorial work and wrote like some extra Conan stories to pad the job. Those Conan paperbacks are great. And that's also mid 60s. And around the same time, Lovecraft paperbacks also. Now, I don't remember, I'm not up on it enough to know which Lovecraft paperbacks were the first collections. This is the complete fiction. Melanie, you were talking about buying the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. Probably the easiest way to buy it. The 80s paperbacks with the Michael Whelan covers. One of those is called The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath and Other Stories. It has 3 or 4 other weird short stories about Randolph Carter and dream quests that um, that aren't as good as the big one. I think I skipped over all of them, like leading up to the Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath. Um, but yeah, I had to throw away my library. I had a bunch of really nice books, but I don't guess I'll keep any books again. I'll just read them as I go. Um, yeah, Sean really wants me to read Jack London. Maybe. I really, there's some other classic fantasy literature I really want to read. I really want to read some William Hope Hodgson or some James Branch Cabell. There's a bunch of books I really love that nobody knows about. Lovecraft's pretty famous though. I mean, uh, but but I was already engaged in reading Lovecraft. Like I'd been making recordings of myself reading Lovecraft that Red stole. My daughter Red liked them enough that she stole them. The CDs of me reading Lovecraft. Um, they have 2 different H.P. Lovecraft book sets on Amazon. Um, huh. Yeah. Well, this story is not like anything else he ever wrote. Uh, that that 80s paperback, like I said, has this story, and well, the 4 or 5 short stories that are kind of like this are all in the one paperback called The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath and Other Stories. But I don't know that that's the best place to start. He's tricky because there isn't. I don't know. He's hard to get into. If you're into weird fantasy, this story is actually really easy to get into, but not if you're expecting a horror writer. Like this is not Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath is not a horror story. It's got horror stylings. It reminds me of Nightmare Before Christmas more than anything else. Like it's really unique. Like there just isn't. It is a little bit like The Nightland by William Hope Hodgson, which I'd forgot until I was reading tonight. Something reminded me of The Nightland. Oh, the giant statues coming to life. That's like a thing that happens in The Nightland, um, which I'd also like to read out loud on stream. Uh, um, William Hope Hodgson was one of Lovecraft's favorite writers, and he's remembered now because he Lovecraft's favorite novel was his novel The House on the Borderland, and that's probably the inspiration for this sort of like psychedelic flights of fancy in the story I just read. Um, that and the Nightland and The House on the Borderland by William Hope Hodgson are both really trippy. Uh, I don't think I don't think Lovecraft was into drugs at all. I think Lovecraft was I think he was like David Lynch. Like he knew guys who were into weird drugs. Psychedelic drug culture was really limited in his day. Um, I suspect Clark Ashton Smith, his friend and associate, who also wrote for Weird Tales, was into mescaline or peyote, but I don't know. St. Joshi is the editor who's the expert on all these writers. He would know the answer to that. I'd like to bring him on to talk to him about Lovecraft. I have to set up to do interviews. I can get an interview with Joshi, and it would be really fun to talk to him at length about this stuff. He'd have fun ideas about what to read out loud too. Um, and And Richard Stanley also, who made the movie The Color Out of Space a couple years ago, which is based on a Lovecraft story. It's coming up in this book. One of his best stories. He's doing another Lovecraft movie, The Dunwich Horror, which is also coming up in this book. But yeah, I talked to Richard Stanley like a year ago about doing a long live interview in here, and taking questions about his movies about hardware and Color Out of Space and this and that he has done. And oh, and The Island of Dr. Moreau is his big Hollywood movie. But like I was like, yeah, I just want to have a long, relaxed conversation really about adapting Lovecraft and adapting Wells, like the race politics, but the screenwriting really. Um, Except that like we have live chat, so we won't really be in control of what we get to talk about. But again, like I just haven't. I'm trying to get moved to a better place before I get caught up with the technological stuff here. Uh, yeah, yeah. If I spend the 1,000 I have to move on setting up the office and the channel, then I'm not. I don't have the money to move. Uh, hey, Derek, I'm feeling a little better. I lost another tooth. I've broken off like parts of like 3 or 4 teeth in the last week. Um, but yeah, I'm still taking antibiotics. My sinuses are trying to get infected on this side. I'm trying to get moved to Mississippi and get my Medicaid shit squared away with a serious permanent address near where I have family to sign emergency medical shit if necessary. Before I, I mean, like, there's no point in starting this shit with a dentist here in Lima. One of the 6 book sets on Amazon is a collection of macabre tales in the Mountains of Madness, the Call of Cthulhu, and other books. Let me hold on a second. Let me uh so just pulled one of his teeth. He's pulled 5 of his own. Derek in Tampa, I once saw a coworker who was um he was a heroin addict, uh and he had gotten bitten by a brown recluse, like clearly a recluse bite on the back of his leg. It was right here, and I saw him just like anesthetize it himself and drain it with his free hand. It's like, I mean, yeah, you already got access to all the hard drugs. You got, like, we work at this store. You got stuff at the store, hydrogen peroxide and stuff. Yeah, I mean, are you gonna go to the ER for that just because it's gross? They're not gonna let you do heroin before you do it at the ER. Yeah, one of my teeth, I had to pull half of it. One of the one that like really came out. But then parts of 2 other teeth came off too. The ones on the bottom are just like I just need dentures like from here back. I had a whole bunch of really expensive, really nice dental work that all fell to pieces because it's basically ceramic and has to be replaced constantly after I no longer had good insurance. So, like, in an ideal world, my ex-wife would pay for all this, but unfortunately, in the actual world, I have to pray that eventually you guys will be able to help me pay for it. Well, actually, it's kind of like the channel will kickstart getting started as a screenwriter again, and then selling a screenplay will pay for the teeth because God only knows it's going to be 5 or 10 grand to set my mouth straight. Um, okay, hold on a second. I'm looking at Amazon now. Lovecraft Country. I forgot about that. Oh, right. I knew that there was a popular graphic novel based on this. I don't like the way it looks, the art in the graphic novel. Here's an illustrated version of this that's like a fancy $40 book. The cover doesn't look that great for that either. Man, this comic book looks dull. Maybe the inside looks better than the. Somebody did an audiobook where the art for the front of it is just a bunch of cats which is which is cool. um, okay, this one looks cool. It's another audiobook though. I mean, I guess it makes sense that audiobook versions of this would have super cool art. You can download it for Kindle for like 99 cents, but and then there's the complete book, but there's got to be a. Oh, right. I forgot that somebody did a motion comic based on the first graphic novel of this by Jason Bradley. Yeah. Book 6 going for $755 in hardcover, $10 in paperback. You guys are insane. There's an annotated edition of this. Oh my god, I shouldn't have looked this up. H.P. Lovecraft Tales of Horror Leather-bound Classics on Kindle. Okay, so that's not leather-bound. I can tell you that. Boy, this is actually weird. You know what? Let me do this. So, yeah, that's what I want. I'm talking to my computer, yes. I was looking to see if there was an Arkham House book with this, but yeah, Arkham House hasn't been publishing Lovecraft since the 80s. Boy, I hadn't realized it was the book I have is the complete fiction, but it's not. The book I have is called The Complete Fiction of H.P. Lovecraft, but it's the complete fiction, so it's hard to like. You'd still have to look up on Wikipedia which stories are the ones you'd want to start with. Probably, it's not the best book to start with. Um, do I have an Amazon account? I can set one up now that I have a bank card. They kicked me out of my old account and wouldn't let me back in because I didn't have the password. I think I can set up a new account now. Yeah, that would be cool because there's so much, like, in terms of my life. Like, I'm still, nobody's come in and bought that. Like, I lost everything in Tampa. Like, I've said a couple of times, like, there's still really basic things I don't have. Like, the reason I have 5 identical black t-shirts is because I needed them for work. I have 4 identical black dress shirts because I needed those for work. Like, I don't, bunch of stuff like wardrobe stuff that I don't have still. A decent place to live. But like there's little things on Amazon too. Like fans, it's much easier and more fun for fans to buy me little things I need and then they know exactly what I have that they bought me. It's cool. Um, Stuff for the cats too. Pie and Zoe could be rolling in toys and treats. They need catnip right now. The closest store where I can buy catnip is like it is almost a 2 hour walk away. I do get catnip when I'm over there, but um, you just woke up. You fell asleep early. I'm about to you're always buying off of Amazon. Um, yeah, I'm about to duck out of here for the night, guys. Yeah, I'm trying to keep these reading streams uncluttered by too much other stuff at the end or at the beginning because, yeah, for obvious reasons. I like it being slightly cluttered up with distractions. I don't like it being a straight, like, professional seeming reading stream, but like I like hanging out, but not too much. I'm not gonna let it go and turn into a chat stream in here. And I gotta go eat. And your cat is allergic to catnip. Are you sure? Like, how does she? Does it make her sick? That would suck. All right, guys. I will see you. His lips swell. That sucks. Poor kitty. I was about to joke around about giving him other harder drugs, but I should not joke about drugging cats on the internet. It'll come back years later to haunt me. He was telling people to give their cats crystal meth. What's wrong with him? Hey, Derek. Yeah, in my above ground swimming pool. Is that what I'm in? It's like an upside down swimming pool, really. This is what I'm sitting on the roof of. Upside down. I'm sitting upside down. Yeah. Melanie, thanks. Good night, guys. I'll see you tonight. Yeah, I'll see you tonight.